Hello and welcome to the Behind the Stripes webcast. This is Tribune sports editor Joe Walljasper along with Tribune football beat writer Dave Matter. Dave, Missouri coming off a 50-6 victory over McNeese State. Kind of what we expected, I suppose, although I guess maybe the thing that stood out to everyone was the play of Henry Josey, 7 carries for more than 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 62-yard run. Yeah. How much do you think he becomes a part of the offense from this point forward?
I think he should become part of the offense. I think, and we touched on this in our coverage after the game, but I thought he's a little different than Missouri's other tailbacks. He's about the same size, not much bigger, but he's obviously faster. He looks faster, at least, on that 62-yard run, and he hits the hole harder and with a little more explosiveness than anyone else. He doesn't fidget around back there like some of the other guys do. And I think that's one ingredient that this offense has kind of been missing for a couple years and could use with him. Now, granted, it's against a 1AA opponent, but on that 62-yard run, he outran 2 or 3 defenders who had a pretty good angle on him, and he can probably do that against a lot of defenses, I would think, if he gets some blocking like that, because he does appear to be that fast. So I think he should be a part of the offense. If you give him 8 to 12 touches a game in some way, I think he at least deserves an audition at this point against better competition, which they're going to start seeing soon.
Yeah, it seems like if you get the right play called and get it blocked right, he's a guy that could take it maybe 60 yards as opposed to 10 yards. And that's a big deal. I think the next few games, not only for him, but maybe for the running game in general, is a good little test to see how much it's going to be a part of the plan. Because against Illinois, it really just seemed like it was an afterthought. It was something you do kind of just like a placeholder. I guess we should probably run a running play here at some point, and They eventually did. But if you have a guy that can kind of change the field position or take it the distance, I think maybe then you've earned a spot in the play calling list of David Yost. And I think that's kind of what it's going to take, because right now he's a lot more comfortable throwing the ball, and that could change.
Yeah, after 2 games, Missouri is the one of only 2 BCS conference teams in the country that has played 2 games and run the ball as few times as they have. Florida State has run it 1 less time. So they are leaning on the pass. Blaine Gabbert has completed more passes than any quarterback in the country at this point. So is that the direction this offense is going to stay all year? We don't know. But Henry Josey looks like at least a home run threat at that position.
And Blaine Gabbert's really good, and he's obviously their best offensive player.
Right.
But I think, if you're just become a one-dimensional passing team, I mean, you can win games that way. You could probably win 8 games that way. But I think to really win at a high level, you got to be able to run the ball too.
Yeah, and they showed that in 2007, the good year that Missouri had when Tony Temple was occasionally a threat that really balanced out that offense.
All right, defensively, again, they had another good game, although obviously you got to factor in the competition. But they've got some young guys that maybe we didn't think a whole lot about before this year began that are looking pretty good. Maybe just go over them one by one. You've got Michael Sam, a defensive end against McNeese State. He blocks a punt and sacks a quarterback for a safety. You got Andrew Wilson, who made his first start. I think he made 8 tackles. He looked pretty good. And then also Brad Madison, I think in both games has been fairly impressive. He's a guy we didn't hear much about at all coming into the year. Against Illinois, he has a tackle for a loss and a recovered fumble.
Yeah, if anything, it looks like they're developing some depth on that side of the ball. And we've talked before. I think it's probably best to reserve judgment on Missouri's defense until they get into October and face some better teams. But they are playing more guys, it seems like. When you can play 5 defensive ends, which they're doing right now, and Dave Steckel told me on Monday, defensive coordinator, that he's really comfortable with the 5 that they're playing. Last year they mostly played with 3, sometimes 4 at the end of the year. That's great for the starters because they get a blow every once in a while, Alden and Jacques Smith. But it looks better up there. It looks like those guys are getting to the quarterback, Sam especially. Just 1 sack, but he's putting some pressure on, and that's probably contributing to a lot of the takeaways you're seeing in the secondary. The defensive backs are making some what look like really easy interceptions, but part of that, though, is because quarterbacks are throwing bad passes because they're not getting a lot of time back there. So far so good, but yeah, I think the D-line is one area, especially in the end, not so much inside, but on the edge, they're developing some guys there. And Wilson's a guy I was impressed with the other night. He might be, outside of Will Ebner, the most physical tackler on the team. He's made some big hits in special teams, too, also. So he's a guy that Gary Pinkel kind of gushed over yesterday, saying that he will have a great future at Missouri. Not starting this week, most likely. He's back to number 2 on the outside now that Will Ebner is back. But he's going to be a steady guy in that rotation, I think.
Now, usually Missouri in their non-conference schedule, there will be at least one game where they get a pretty good scare, if not a loss. Do you think San Diego State is the kind of team that it could happen? Last year they go 4-8. This year they're 2-0 with 2 lopsided wins, but against Nicholls State and New Mexico State.
Yeah, on paper they look like they're much improved offensively. The quarterback's had some good numbers so far. They have a freshman tailback that is the best running back statistically so far in the Mountain West Conference. And they've got a couple receivers that have done well. They haven't given up a sack yet. But you look at their competition, and it's a lot worse than what Missouri's even played. They played Nicholls State, which is not a good 1AA team. And they've played New Mexico State, which might be the worst 1A team out there. So they're piling up the numbers against bad competition. And the New Mexico State game was fairly close in the fourth quarter, too. So,
although it was on the road.
It was on the road, and San Diego State's really struggled on the road. They haven't won at a BCS conference school since, I believe, 1999 when they won at Kansas, of all places. So they're a big underdog, but I think it's a program that's moving in the right direction. Brady Hoke, former head coach at Ball State, a guy that Gary Pinkel said he has a lot of respect for, which he usually does when you have a MAC background like Hoke does. And he's got 2 coordinators who have been around the block for many years. Al Borges coaches the offense. He was at Auburn a few years ago, did some good things there. And Rocky Long is a long-time veteran defensive coach, was the head coach at New Mexico a few years ago when Missouri played them. So,
I think he made a disparaging comment about Missouri's offense.
He did.
He
referred to spread offenses as not being real football. And, to his credit, he did beat Missouri once here in 2005, I believe, and then 2006, Missouri went to Albuquerque and won there. But it wasn't the easiest of games. I think it was a 10-point win. Missouri ran the ball pretty well because the passing game, I think Chase Daniel had an interception return for a touchdown, got sacked a few times. So his defense will present, I think, some challenges. They blitz a lot, and we'll see if Blaine Gabbert's up to that as well as Daniel was by this point in his career. He liked when teams blitzed. Gabbert says he does too, but I think we'll have to see if he can handle that kind of pressure.
All right. Lastly, we'll have some viewer mail.
We've got one question via Twitter from David McDonald. This is something we kind of just touched on. Not a big, complex answer for here, but is San Diego State the best offense the Tigers have seen this season? I think the stats say yes, but again, compared to who they've played this year, I'm not so sure we really know that much about San Diego State. They weren't very good offensively last year. A lot of it's the same players, except for the tailback, who's a true freshman. I think maybe by the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if the 3 teams Missouri will have played after 3 weeks that Illinois might have the best offense by the end of the season if Nathan Shieldhouse comes around. I think Michael LaShore is a pretty good running back. So right now, statistically, it looks like San Diego State is the best, but I'm not sold yet just because they haven't played anybody.
All right, well, that'll wrap it up for this week. Tune in next week. We'll talk about the San Diego State game and then look forward to the final non-conference game against Miami of Ohio.